welcome back to my YouTube channel. So if you saw in the title of this video, I'm going to be talking about how to choose good hypertrophy movements. If you've never heard the word hypertrophy before, it simply means muscle growth. There are ways to actually maximize hypertrophy adaptations that are different than strength training. A lot of this is going to be based on the movements that you are choosing to do. There are movements that are better for strength and there are movements that are better for hypertrophy, but we are going to focus on the hypertrophy side of things. So there are 5 things we can keep in mind when it comes to choosing good hypertrophy movements. 1, we want concentrated tension on the tissue we are trying to grow. 2, we want to choose movements that require less internal stabilization. 3, we want to choose movements that fit our structure. 4, we want a proper execution, of course. And 5, we want to choose movements that have a high stimulus and low fatigue. For 1, we want to choose movements that place a high degree of concentrated tension on the tissue we are trying to grow. So what does this mean? This means we are choosing movements that train the tissue specifically versus choosing movements that train a lot of different muscles. When it comes to hypertrophy, we really want to choose movements that provide that concentrated tension to the tissue we are trying to target and not a lot of other muscles. So for example, if we're trying to train the glutes, we're going to choose a Romanian deadlift versus a conventional deadlift. Yes, you can absolutely build muscle with conventional deadlifts. You can even build the glutes, but the better choice is going to be that Romanian deadlift because it's going to provide more concentrated tension on the glutes versus with the deadlift, you're getting a lot of back, you're getting quads, you're getting kind of everything with the conventional deadlift, which makes it great for strength, but not as good for hypertrophy. Essentially, we want to choose movements that get more of one muscle group versus choosing movements that get more of a lot of muscle groups. For 2, we want to choose movements that don't require a great amount of internal stabilization. So we are choosing movements that have a high degree of stability. A lot of this will actually be machines. So let's compare a hack squat to a barbell squat. Because we are able to brace against the back pad, this is going to offer up more stability than a barbell squat and overall be a better choice when it comes to choosing movements that require less internal stabilization. There's nothing wrong with a standard barbell squat, but you are going to have to use more internal stabilization compared to a hack squat. Hack squat is going to be the better choice because of that high degree of stability. And then also going back to number 2, because of that high degree of stability, we can place more concentrated tension on the tissue we are trying to target versus placing tension all around the body. If you're choosing movements that do require a lot of balance, you're taking away from the tissue you are trying to grow. So we really want to choose movements that offer up more stability versus choosing movements that require us to stabilize ourselves more. Number 3, it's really important to choose movements that fit your structure. Now this will vary person to person. A great example is a Romanian deadlift. So you've got a trap bar, you've got dumbbells, and you've got a barbell. So in terms of fitting your structure, some may find that the trap bar actually works better for them. You're more in that natural shoulder position with your arms at your sides. So here we've got the trap bar deadlift. You can see that my arms are more in a natural position at my sides. This may work great depending on the length of your arms, or someone may find that the handles are too far apart. It really just depends on your structure. Someone may find that the dumbbells work best for them. You can put yourself in a bit more of a natural shoulder position when we are comparing the dumbbells to a barbell. Lastly, we have a barbell. Here you are locked into that position with your arms directly in front of you. But it really is about just finding what works best for you and what piece of equipment allows you to really nail your execution. Number 4 is going to be proper execution. This is going to go beyond just hypertrophy training. For any type of training, you always want to be sure that your execution is correct. This should always be priority before you ever add on weight to make sure that you are nailing your execution. 1, because it will allow you to target the muscle you are trying to target, and 2, just for safety reasons, you really want to make sure that you have a proper execution. Example, a Romanian deadlift, a lot of people tend to bend at their waist. So not only are they taking tension off the glutes and putting it more on their low back, this can actually cause injury if you're continuing to load the barbell while your execution is just not on point, and it can cause lower back pain. Number 4, we want to choose movements with high stimulus and low fatigue. So for example, going back to the barbell deadlift, this movement is going to produce a lot of fatigue. Because it's a highly coordinated movement, it's going to tax the nervous system more. Movements that don't require a lot of internal stabilization will have higher stimulus and lower fatigue. Because you're not having to use a lot of other muscles, you can really concentrate on the tissue you're trying to target. So these are 5 things to be aware of when it comes to choosing good hypertrophy movements. Again, we want to choose movements that place a high degree of concentrated tension on the tissue we are trying to grow. Choose movements that fit our structure. Choose movements that don't require a lot of internal stabilization. We want to properly execute these movements. And we want to choose movements that have a high stimulus but are less fatiguing. I do want to make it clear that even if every movement that you are choosing doesn't follow these guidelines, it does not mean that you won't make progress. This is just a way to maximize hypertrophy. You can absolutely still make progress using movements that don't fit these categories. But again, when we are focusing on that adaptation of hypertrophy, these are going to be some keys that you really do want to follow to maximize your results.